Restaurant owner kicks out a poor kid. Elon Musk was watching him. What he does next will bring you to tears. It was a sunny afternoon in downtown Los Angeles, where the streets buzzed with the hum of luxury cars and the chatter of well-dressed passers-by. Among the city's most sought-after spots was Le Luxe, a high-end restaurant famed for its exclusivity and impeccable service. Inside, the clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of diners created an air of sophistication. Amid this opulence, a young boy, no older than 12, stepped through the ornate glass doors. His clothes were worn, his sneakers scuffed, and his backpack tattered, yet his eyes gleamed with quiet determination. He hesitated for a moment, scanning the room before timidly approaching the hostess. "I'd like a meal, please," he said, his voice barely audible but filled with hope. The diners turned their heads, curious and bewildered, as this small boy stood in stark contrast to the grandeur around him. Unbeknownst to everyone, a familiar face sat in the corner, observing silently. Elon Musk. This unassuming moment would soon spark a series of events that would leave everyone speechless. The hostess, momentarily taken aback, composed herself and offered the boy a polite but hesitant smile. "I'm sorry, but do you have a reservation?" she asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. The boy nodded quickly, fumbling in his backpack to produce a few crumpled dollar bills. "I have money," he said earnestly, his eyes pleading for understanding. Before the hostess could respond, the restaurant owner appeared from the back, his sharp suit and commanding presence signaling authority. He looked at the boy with a mixture of annoyance and disbelief. "What's going on here?" he asked curtly, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby diners. The hostess stepped aside nervously. "He's asking for a meal, sir," she explained, glancing at the boy with a hint of sympathy. The owner's gaze hardened as he turned to the boy. "This isn't a place for handouts," he said firmly. "We run a high-end establishment, not a charity." The boy's cheeks flushed, and he clutched his backpack tighter. "I'm not asking for free food," he said softly. "I just want to order something small. I can pay." The diners exchanged whispers, some looking on with disapproval, others pulling out their phones to record the unfolding scene. A few murmured words of support for the boy, but no one intervened. The owner, unmoved by the boy's quiet dignity, gestured toward the door. "I'm sorry, but you'll need to leave. We have standards to maintain." At a nearby corner table, Elon Musk observed the entire exchange, his expression unreadable. He leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes fixed on the boy as the owner continued to berate him. The boy's voice trembled as he pleaded, "Please, I'm hungry. I won't take up much space." But the owner's patience had run out. "Enough!" he snapped, motioning for a waiter to escort the boy out. The boy's shoulders slumped as he was led to the door, his small frame dwarfed by the grandeur around him. He glanced back once, his eyes meeting Elon's for a fleeting moment before disappearing onto the bustling street. Inside, the whispers grew louder. Outside, the boy sat on the curb, wiping away tears and clutching his backpack. Elon Musk, still seated, picked up his phone, his expression shifting from passive observation to quiet determination. The wheels in his mind were already turning. Something needed to be done. Elon Musk took a final sip of his drink, set it down gently, and rose from his chair. As he left the restaurant, his towering presence caught the attention of a few diners, but he paid no heed to their curious stares. Instead, his focus was on the boy, who sat on the curb outside, hunched over, trying to mask his tears. Elon walked over slowly, his shadow falling over the boy, who glanced up in surprise. "Hey," Elon said softly, crouching to meet his eyes. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "Daniel?" he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel," Elon repeated with a nod, his voice calm and reassuring. What happened back there wasn't right. No one should be treated like that. Daniel looked away, his small hands clutching his backpack. "I just wanted something to eat," he murmured, the defeat in his voice cutting through the noise of the bustling street. Elon sat beside him on the curb, his suit a stark contrast to the dusty pavement. "You know," he began, his tone light but thoughtful, "when I was your age, I faced moments that made me feel small too. But those moments don't define us. It's what we do after them that matters." Daniel glanced at him, unsure what to say. To him, Elon was just a kind stranger. He didn't yet realize he was sitting next to one of the most influential men in the world. Elon stood and pulled out his phone, making a quick call. "I need my team to meet me at Lux," he said firmly. "This is urgent. Pull everyone together." Hanging up, he turned back to Daniel. "Stay here for a bit, okay? I promise you won't be hungry for long." Inside the restaurant, the owner was oblivious to the unfolding plan. He mingled with diners, confident in his decision to maintain the restaurant's exclusivity. Meanwhile, Elon's team began to mobilize. Trucks carrying supplies started to arrive, drawing the attention of passers-by. An hour later, the street outside Lux was unrecognizable. Tables, chairs, and food stations had been set up, creating an impromptu outdoor dining space. A banner hung across the area reading, "Everyone deserves a meal. Kindness over division." Daniel stood in awe as Elon guided him to the center of the gathering. "This is for you, Daniel," Elon said, "and for anyone who's ever been made to feel unwelcome." Word of the event spread rapidly. Social media lit up with photos and live streams, captions praising Elon's unexpected act of kindness. Crowds began to gather, including many who had witnessed the earlier scene. The atmosphere transformed into one of unity and celebration. Inside, the restaurant owner stared out the window, his confidence shaken. The noise and energy outside were impossible to ignore. The stark contrast between the joy on the street and the tension within his establishment made him realize that he might have made a grave mistake. As the street outside the restaurant began to buzz with activity, Elon Musk was already orchestrating something far bigger than just a spontaneous act of kindness. His team, known for executing ambitious projects with precision, arrived swiftly, carrying equipment, banners, tables, and more. Elon walked amongst them, giving concise instructions. "This isn't just about feeding one kid," he explained to his assistant. "This is about making a statement, showing the world that empathy and compassion can change lives." Elon's first priority was ensuring Daniel felt safe and valued. He crouched beside him again. "Daniel," he said gently, "have you ever seen a food festival?" The boy shook his head, still unsure of what was happening. Elon smiled. "Well, you're about to help create one. Today, this street becomes a place where everyone is welcome." He handed Daniel a brightly colored badge with the words, "Special Guest." "You'll be at the heart of this," Elon said. "But first, we need to make it happen." Elon's team quickly set up long tables filled with an array of food from local vendors who had jumped at the chance to be part of the event. Food trucks were stationed at the ends of the block, offering free meals to anyone who needed them. Elon knew the power of media and social platforms. He sent out a single tweet. "Witnessing an act of exclusion inspired me to act. Kindness should be the norm, not the exception. Join us at Lux for a community meal. Everyone's welcome." Within minutes, the tweet went viral. Influencers, journalists, and everyday people shared it, tagging friends and spreading the word. Soon, local news crews arrived, cameras rolling as they captured the transformation of the once exclusive street into a vibrant hub of inclusivity. The event began to draw crowds from all walks of life. Families, students, and even people who had dined at Lux earlier in the day returned to see what was happening. Some brought donations, while others offered their time to help serve food or assist with the setup. Elon personally greeted attendees, shaking hands and taking photos, his approachable demeanor putting everyone at ease. "This isn't just about food," he explained to a reporter. "It's about building bridges, creating spaces where people feel valued regardless of their background." As the event gained momentum, Elon called an impromptu meeting with his team. "This can't just be a one-time thing," he said. "We need to think bigger." Ideas flowed rapidly. One of Elon's assistants suggested launching a foundation dedicated to creating safe spaces and providing resources for underprivileged communities. Elon nodded. "Let's make it happen. We'll call it the Bridge to Kindness Initiative." He decided the foundation's first project would be to partner with local restaurants to offer free meals weekly to those in need. "Every restaurant has the power to do something small," he said, "and when those small acts combine, they create something monumental." Throughout the day, Daniel's confidence grew. Elon gave him small tasks, like helping to distribute food and welcoming attendees. People treated him with kindness, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt like he belonged. At one point, Elon called him to the stage. "Daniel," he said into the microphone, "you reminded me today why compassion matters. Your courage brought all of us here together." The crowd erupted in applause as Daniel blushed, a shy smile spreading across his face. Inside Le Lux, the owner stood at the window, watching the event unfold. The laughter and joy outside were infectious, but for him, they were a stark reminder of his earlier actions. The buzz of social media was impossible to ignore. His restaurant's name was trending, but not for the right reasons. His staff, many of whom had expressed discomfort with how Daniel was treated, began whispering about stepping outside to join the event. The owner, battling his pride, finally muttered, "Go ahead if you want." By evening, the event had drawn hundreds of attendees and raised substantial funds through spontaneous donations. Elon's team announced that every dollar raised would go toward the new foundation, with Daniel as its honorary ambassador. Elon stood at the center, observing the impact of the day. This wasn't just about Daniel anymore. It was about everyone who had ever felt excluded or invisible. He saw the power of a single act of kindness ripple outward, bringing people together in ways he hadn't imagined. The foundation had its start, but Elon knew this was just the beginning. Today was proof that change starts small, he told his team, but small steps lead to big transformations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Elon glanced at Daniel, who was laughing with a group of volunteers. The sight filled him with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Tomorrow, the world would continue to talk about what happened, but for Elon, it wasn't about headlines. It was about setting an example for how kindness could reshape lives. The following morning, the quiet block in front of Le Lux had transformed into a vibrant, bustling hub of activity. Trucks lined the street, unloading everything from large tables and colorful banners to tents and food stations. Volunteers worked tirelessly to set up booths, while local chefs prepped food for the hungry crowd that was quickly beginning to gather. A large banner stretched across the street, its bold letters reading, "Kindness knows no boundaries. Join us for a community meal." Daniel stood at the center of the scene, his wide eyes taking in the flurry of activity around him. He could hardly believe what was happening. Just the day before, he had been humiliated and kicked out of a restaurant. But today, it was as though the world had shifted entirely. Elon had kept his promise, and now Daniel wasn't just a spectator. He was a part of something much bigger. Elon Musk, calm and focused, moved amongst the crowd, offering instructions and encouragement. His presence had an immediate effect on those around him. People who had never met him before found themselves drawn to his aura of purpose, his belief that this event, this moment, could create lasting change. The energy was contagious, and the excitement in the air was palpable. As the food stations were set up, the first wave of people began to arrive. Families, young professionals, students, and even a few local celebrities mingled, creating a sense of unity that seemed to spread like wildfire. The event was no longer just about one boy's plight. It had become a symbol of collective action, a way for the community to show that kindness and inclusion were more important than status, wealth, or political opinion. Among the crowd, several local charities had set up tables, offering information on ways people could get involved in giving back. Activists, business owners, and even individuals who had faced their own struggles came together to contribute to the cause. It wasn't just a food drive, it was a rally for compassion. Meanwhile, inside Luluc's, the owner was facing a dilemma. He had been observing the event from his office window, trying to ignore the uncomfortable feeling in his stomach as he saw more and more people flocking to the gathering outside. The atmosphere inside his restaurant, once filled with luxury and exclusivity, now felt hollow and tense. His staff had grown restless. Some had already sneaked outside to witness the unfolding event, while others lingered, glancing uneasily at the door. Despite his reservations, the owner couldn't help but wonder if he had made the wrong decision. The buzzing energy outside, the faces of people coming together for a common cause, filled him with a sense of regret. Was this what his restaurant had been lacking? A sense of humanity? The question lingered in his mind as he watched more diners cancel reservations and new customers turn away, drawn to the event outside. Back on the street, Elon had begun to address the crowd. The microphone crackled to life, and the sound of his calm, authoritative voice filled the air. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on him as he began to speak. Yesterday, a young boy was turned away from a restaurant because he didn't fit some arbitrary standard of what belongs. Today, we're here to show that kindness doesn't have a dress code, Elon began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The crowd erupted into applause, and Daniel, standing at the front, beamed with pride. He had never imagined a day like this, never imagined that he would be at the center of it all, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. This event, Elon continued, is not just about providing food. It's about creating a space where people can feel seen and heard. It's about breaking down barriers, whether they're social, economic, or personal, and showing that at the end of the day, we're all human. The crowd cheered again, some holding up their phones to capture the moment, while others nodded in agreement. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the powerful sense of unity that Elon had envisioned. For many of the attendees, this was the first time they had felt connected to a cause that transcended individual differences. People weren't just giving to charity, they were giving to a vision. As Elon finished his speech, Daniel took the stage beside him. He was still a little shy, but the overwhelming support from the crowd had filled him with newfound confidence. "I didn't expect this," he said, his voice trembling slightly but growing stronger as he spoke. "Yesterday, I thought no one cared about me. But today, I see that I matter, and I know that all of us matter." The crowd's applause was thunderous, and Daniel, overwhelmed by emotion, wiped his eyes. It was the first time in a long while that he had felt truly seen. As the event continued, more people arrived, joining the crowd that now stretched down the block. The food trucks began to serve meals, volunteers handed out free water, and children played games while their parents engaged in conversations about giving back and supporting local communities. Music filled the air, adding to the festive yet reflective atmosphere. At the heart of it all, Elon Musk walked through the crowd, shaking hands, chatting with attendees, and listening to their stories. The day was not just about the meal or the donations. It was about the connections being made between people from different walks of life. What had started as a simple act of kindness had turned into a movement. Inside Luluc's, the owner sat at his desk watching the transformation from his office window. A part of him felt the weight of his earlier decision, the consequences of rejecting a young boy who had simply wanted a meal. But there, outside, he saw a community coming together. And slowly he began to understand the power of inclusivity, of creating a space where everyone felt welcome. The event was more than just a meal. It was the beginning of something much bigger. It was the start of a conversation about empathy, kindness, and breaking down the walls that divide us. And for Daniel, it was the first day of a new life, a life where he felt valued, heard, and most importantly, loved. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the bustling event, the atmosphere shifted from excitement to reflection. Elon Musk stood near the stage, watching as volunteers continued to serve food and families mingled, some sharing stories, others simply enjoying the sense of togetherness. The event had far surpassed anyone's expectations. It was a resounding success, not just in numbers, but in its impact. Inside Lulux, the owner finally made his way outside, his steps hesitant as he approached the stage. The noise of the crowd hushed as he reached Elon and Daniel. The owner cleared his throat, his face lined with regret. I owe you both an apology," he said, his voice low but sincere. "I handled things badly yesterday. I let my pride get in the way of doing what was right." Elon nodded, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Acknowledging mistakes is the first step," he replied. "It's never too late to make things right." The owner turned to Daniel. "I'm truly sorry for what happened. If you'll allow me, I'd like to invite you back to Lulux anytime you want. No conditions, just a meal." Daniel, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief, nodded. "Thank you," he whispered, and for the first time in days, a genuine smile spread across his face. The crowd cheered, the applause carrying a message of hope and reconciliation. As the event drew to a close, Elon Musk stood at the edge of the crowd, watching as people continued to mingle and share their stories. The day had turned into something far more powerful than anyone had anticipated. A moment of healing, understanding, and unity. He glanced at Daniel, who was now surrounded by new friends, his laughter echoing through the evening air. The boy had gone from a symbol of rejection to one of hope. Elon took the microphone one last time, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "Today we prove that kindness and understanding are more powerful than anything that divides us. We don't need to agree on everything, but we do need to listen, to care, to connect." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers a reminder of the difference one small act of kindness could make. As the last of the attendees slowly left, Elon and Daniel stood together, watching the sunset. The world had changed, even if just for today, and that was enough. The moral was clear. Kindness could transcend barriers and create lasting change.